Listen to part of a lecture in a biology class.
Sometimes we think of agriculture as being an exclusively human achievement that allowed us to create civilizations. Well, yeah. But before you start crediting our wonderful human brains, consider this. Some species of ants have been engaging in agriculture since long before humans. Leafcutter ants are particularly interesting. Instead of simply going off and finding food to bring back to the nest, like many of the ants we are more familiar with, they actually cultivate fungus farms. This is how it works. The ants gather leaves, bring them back to the nest, and cut them up, hence the name, leafcutter ants. Let me just clear up a possible misconception here. Leafcutter ants don't actually eat the leaves they gather. Nope. They cut them up and use them to make a kind of garden, a fungus farm. Okay, so the leafcutter ants cut up leaves by, well, they actually chew them up into a pulp. Then the pulp starts to decay and is stored with fungus spores. As you might guess, the decaying leaves essentially form a compost that helps their crop, fungus, grow. And that's what they feed on, the fungus they grow. You might be thinking that this sounds like an awful lot of work, cultivating fungus gardens. So, why go to all that trouble? Why not just eat the leaves? Well, the leaves that they use to grow the fungus are inedible, poisonous. They've evolved in such a way as to discourage animals from eating them. So these ingenious little ants have figured out a way to use an otherwise useless plant to their own advantage. So what we're seeing here is a symbiotic relationship of mutual benefit between the ants and the fungus. The ants benefit because they get something to eat, and the fungus benefits because it gets nourishment provided for it. And it has a place to grow where it is protected. Protected from what? Well, from parasites, which might not seem like a particularly grave concern, but I'll tell you why it is. Remember how I said that fungus spores are stored with the leaf pulp? Were you wondering where those fungus spores came from? Well, the queen ant takes them from her last colony. You know about the ant life cycle, right? The queen ant is born with wings, flies off to mate, starts a new colony, loses her wings and spends her life laying eggs. So, the queen leafcutter ant, before flying off to mate, takes some fungus in her mouth and keeps it to start her new farm elsewhere. Well, because of this, all the new fungus that is grown is genetically identical to the fungus in the old hive. That's because the fungus reproduces clonally. So, if a parasite that is particularly well suited to attack the fungus is introduced to the garden, there's a lot at risk. A single kind of parasite could potentially destroy many fungus gardens in many ant colonies. As you can imagine, it's pretty important for the leafcutter ants to have a way to deal with this type of situation. But just how do the ants protect their valuable fungus from parasites? Well, let's look at an example. Weed fungus is a parasite found only in leafcutter ant colonies, and is found in all leafcutter ant colonies. What does that suggest? Namely, that the weed fungus depends on something in the ant colony for survival. Like I said, the weed fungus is a parasite, and if it multiplied too much, it would take over the fungus garden completely. As luck would have it though, the ants produce an antibiotic, which they use to protect their fungal crops from this weed fungus.